Have you ever been so desperate that a single dollar felt like a fortune? Imagine being hungry. Imagine being cold. Imagine having absolutely nobody to call. Now imagine holding your last dollar in your hand and giving it away. Most people wouldn't. Most people couldn't, but one homeless man did, and what happened next changed his life forever. This is the story of Michael Thompson, a story about kindness, a story about sacrifice, and a story that proves that sometimes the smallest decision can create the biggest miracle. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and let us know in the comments. What would you do if your last dollar was all you had left? Now let's begin. Michael Thompson wasn't always homeless. In fact, 10 years earlier, his life looked almost perfect. He lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Chicago. Nothing fancy, nothing luxurious. Just a small home filled with laughter. He had a steady job as a construction supervisor. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was enough to pay the bills, enough to take his wife Sarah out for dinner every now and then, enough to dream about the future. Sarah was the center of Michael's world. She had a way of making bad days feel smaller. Whenever Michael worried about money or work, she would smile and say, "One day at a time," and somehow those 4 words always helped. Every Sunday morning they shared breakfast together. Every evening they talked about their future. They dreamed about traveling, starting a business, growing old together. Life wasn't perfect, it was good. And sometimes good is more valuable than perfect. Michael believed that life would continue exactly as it was. He had no idea how quickly everything could disappear. It started with a phone call, a simple phone call, one that seemed ordinary at first. His company was shutting down. Budget cuts, financial problems, too many losses. Hundreds of workers were being laid off, including Michael. The news hit hard, but he wasn't terrified. Not yet. He had savings. He had experience. He had confidence. Finding another job shouldn't be difficult. At least that's what he thought. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Interview after interview ended with the same answer. "We'll call you," but they never did. Every rejection chipped away at his confidence. Every unpaid bill increased the pressure. The savings account that once felt secure began shrinking faster and faster. Still, Michael kept telling himself things would improve. Then life delivered another blow. One far worse than unemployment. Sarah became sick. At first, it seemed minor, a little fatigue, a few strange symptoms, nothing alarming. But after several tests, the doctors found something serious, very serious. The diagnosis changed everything. Suddenly, their focus wasn't finding work. It was survival. Medical appointments became part of daily life. Prescription costs piled up. Hospital visits became routine. The savings disappeared. Then the retirement fund. Then the emergency fund. Then anything else they could sell. Michael sold tools he loved. Furniture, electronics, even his truck. Nothing mattered except helping Sarah. For months he fought beside her, never complaining, never giving up. But sometimes determination isn't enough. One cold winter morning, Sarah passed away, and Michael's world shattered. People often think grief arrives like a storm. But for Michael, it felt more like silence. The house became quiet. Too quiet, no laughter, no conversations, no voice saying, "One day at a time," just silence. Every room reminded him of her. Every photograph hurt. Every memory felt like a wound. He tried to stay strong, but without Sarah, everything felt heavier. The bills, the loneliness, the uncertainty. Months later, he received another devastating notice. The bank was taking the house. He had fallen too far behind on payments. There was nothing left to do, no way to save it. The day he handed over the keys felt unreal. He stood outside and stared at the front door. The same door he and Sarah had walked through thousands of times. The same door they once decorated for Christmas. The same door where they planned their future. Now it belonged to someone else. And just like that, Michael became homeless. At first he stayed in shelters, then on friends' couches. But eventually, those options disappeared. People have their own lives, their own struggles, their own responsibilities. Michael understood. He never blamed anyone. Still, it hurt. Weeks became months. Months became nearly a year. Every day was about survival. Finding food, finding warmth, finding a safe place to sleep. The hardest part wasn't the hunger. It wasn't even the cold, it was feeling invisible. Thousands of people walked past him every day. Most never looked. Some pretended he wasn't there. Others glanced at him with pity. Few actually spoke. It's a strange feeling, being surrounded by people while feeling completely alone. Michael often wondered how life had changed so dramatically. How had he gone from a loving home to sleeping on park benches? Sometimes, he replayed every decision he had ever made, searching for mistakes, searching for answers. But answers never came, only more questions. Then came the day that changed everything. A freezing afternoon in January. The wind cut through the city's streets like a knife. Michael sat on a bench outside a convenience store. His stomach growled. He reached into his pocket. $1. Just one, that was all he had left. His final dollar. He stared at it, a worn piece of paper. Yet at that moment, it felt priceless. That dollar represented survival. Food, comfort, hope. Maybe a cup of coffee, maybe something small to eat. Anything was better than nothing. Slowly, he stood up and walked toward the store. His mind was already imagining the warmth inside. Then he heard crying, a child's cry. The kind that immediately grabs your attention. Michael turned around. Near a bus stop sat a young woman and her daughter. The little girl couldn't have been older than 7. Tears streamed down her face. The mother looked exhausted, worried, embarrassed. Michael tried not to stare. He continued walking. But then he heard the woman speaking, and the words stopped him cold. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." The mother's voice trembled. "We don't have enough money for the bus." The little girl wiped her eyes. "But I don't feel good." Michael froze. Something about those words hit him hard. The mother searched her purse again. Nothing. She looked desperate. Michael glanced at the dollar in his hand, then back at the woman, then back at the dollar. A battle began inside him. He needed that money. He was hungry, exhausted, alone. Nobody was helping him. Why should he help someone else? For a moment, he convinced himself to keep walking. It made sense. It was practical, reasonable, necessary. But then another voice appeared. A memory, Sarah. He could almost hear her. Kindness is most valuable when it costs you something. Michael closed his eyes. The memory hurt, but it also reminded him who he used to be, who Sarah believed he was. Slowly, he walked toward the woman. She looked up nervously. Without saying much, Michael held out the dollar. The woman stared at it, then stared at him. "You need this more than I do," she whispered. Michael smiled. "Maybe today you need it more." Tears filled her eyes. The little girl smiled for the first time. The woman accepted the dollar, and after several heartfelt thank yous, they boarded the bus. Moments later, they were gone. Michael watched the bus disappear into traffic. Then he looked at his empty hand. For the first time in his life, he owned absolutely nothing. That night was brutal. The temperature dropped below freezing. The wind seemed stronger than ever. Michael found shelter beneath an overpass, curled against a concrete wall. Hungry, cold, alone. Sleep refused to come. His stomach ached, his body trembled, and for the first time, doubt appeared. Had he made a mistake? Had kindness finally cost too much? Maybe life wasn't fair. Maybe good deeds didn't matter. Maybe nobody cared. The thoughts grew darker as the hours passed. But eventually exhaustion won, and Michael drifted into an uneasy sleep, unaware that everything was about to change. Michael expected a small reward, maybe a gift card, maybe a few dollars instead. The businessman offered something far greater, a second chance, temporary housing, job training, employment opportunities, support, guidance, a path forward. Not charity, opportunity. Michael couldn't believe it. Part of him thought it was a dream. Another part feared it would disappear, but it was real. Every word, every offer, every promise. For the first time in years, hope returned. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to take the first step. The months that followed weren't easy. Success never arrives overnight. Michael worked hard, very hard. He attended training programs, learned new skills, showed up early, stayed late, asked questions, accepted criticism, improved constantly. The same determination that once helped him care for Sarah now helped him rebuild his future. People noticed, managers noticed, leaders noticed. Opportunities grew. Promotions followed, responsibilities increased. 1 year became 2, 2 years became 5, and slowly, the man who once slept beneath bridges transformed his life completely. 5 years later, Michael stood inside his own office. Employees moved through the building. Phones rang, meetings happened, projects advanced. The company was thriving. Visitors often noticed something unusual hanging on the wall behind his desk. A framed $1 bill. Old, wrinkled, ordinary. At least at first glance, people would ask why it was there, and Michael would smile. Then he would tell them the story. The story of loss, the story of kindness, the story of one decision. And he always finished with the same words. The best investment I ever made was my last dollar. Because that dollar never bought food, it never bought coffee, it never bought comfort. Instead, it bought something much more valuable. A reminder that character matters, that kindness matters, that who you are during your worst moments matters. And sometimes when life tests you the hardest, one small act can change everything. Maybe not immediately, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Because the world often remembers those who choose compassion when they have every reason not to. And that's exactly what Michael did. He gave away his last dollar, and in doing so, he found his future.